Hello, my friends. By the time Russia is getting Pokrovsk and Mirnograd little by little under control, Ukraine started a counteroffensive in Kupiansk. Well, here's this counterattack vector from Ukrainian side. The idea for Ukraine is to go to Golubivka and completely cut Russian supplies and trap Russian army in Kupiansk. Well, this scenario has high chances to work for Ukraine. There are no defense lines for Russians, and what they might do is just to use lots of the drones to cause Ukrainian army losses. Yeah, that's the downside of this counterattack, that Ukraine will have losses in this case. More losses as usual, as in every kind of the counterattack, and Ukrainian military command now has to decide whether to lose Kupiansk or try to cut the Russians out in this settlement. Well, indeed, it could be a disaster for Russians and for Putin and Russian propaganda. Also, they would be just shocked in this case. I guess it's the main goal now for Ukrainian military command in Kupiansk direction. And if you go to the interactive map itself, you can see that Ukraine unfortunately already has some of the losses. That's the video from the Russian drone. You may see that Ukraine is using also the same protection as Russians, with those metal rods making a hedgehog type of the vehicles. Yeah, unfortunately, the first drone was enough to stop the vehicle, and the second one was also going to cause the damage for it. As you can see, there is another vehicle in the same way, and Russians also hit that one. However, it continued the movement. Well, there was the similar kind of the operation done by Ukrainian army. Also, two of the vehicles were used, and both of them were stopped, but it is the new attack at the same direction. Previously, Ukrainian BMPs were spotted close to this construction. Probably it's the agricultural facility, or maybe it's the substation. So Russia has lots of the drones constantly flying in this area, but if Ukraine somehow manages to get to Golubivka village, that might definitely disturb Russian logistics. Our guys need to go down in some of the basements out there. But also Russia is using aviation strikes, Ukraine by the way too. For example, this one was the aviation strike directly on Kupiansk. Russians went to that building close to the church, and it was later on kaputted by gliding bombs. The fight in Kupiansk is very intense, but for the last several days I don't see the Russian army movement to the southern area of the city. It means that the supply lines for Russian army are not that reliable. They cannot propel that fast as, for example, in Zaporizhia or even in Pokrovsk direction. There are some of the small infiltration attempts of the city, but just very limited. So Ukraine now uses this time to expand this bottleneck, unfortunately with the losses, but there is the chance definitely to cut this entire Russian group. Okay, about Kupiansk, Zelensky gave the short press conference today where he answered that question. He assured that the armed forces of Ukraine are capable to clear up the city from the Russian presence, and he reported about it. Also, he mentioned Pokrovsk direction. We're gonna speak about it a little later in this video. Liman direction, he said no changes, and Dobropilya, the Ukrainian counterattack, is ongoing there. Quite successfully, I would say. Even Russians reported about it. Well, in general, about Kupiansk, Ukraine would not have to perform those kind of the risky operations if Ukraine had concentrated enough reinforcements at the proper time few months ago. Then Russians were capable to go to Dvorichna. They landed the small group of their forces, but they were capable to create the bridgehead. And now they're attacking from the northern side directly to the city. It is a mistake done by Ukrainian defense command or Ukrainian command in general. And now our guys have to perform this heroic action. Yeah, maybe Ukraine is in lack of the resources. That's why those mistakes are happening. Ukraine cannot concentrate forces elsewhere. But Kupiansk, I think it's important direction after all. So Ukraine should have thought about this possible bridgehead well before. Now from Kupiansk, let's go to the southern front lines where Russia tried to assault from Zaporizhia, that's the small village, Yalta, Zaporizhia, the names of the big cities of Ukraine, but those settlements, they have the same names. Well, here Russians tried to attack with some of their tanks and armored vehicles, and let me show you what happened to them. Yep, it happened like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them stuck in this river, which has those kind of the swampy areas. As you might see, Russians were too much sure about their off-road capabilities. And here we have the drone video itself. Well, maybe this MRAP is staying there for a very, very long time, but clearly there are 2 of the tanks and 2 of the BMPs. everything was later on finished by drones. Because taking all of those vehicles from the swamp, you cannot do it at the front lines for sure. You cannot operate with engineering equipment, so it's better to finish everything off. I wonder about the Russian crew, especially in those armored vehicles, because they carry infantry. Were they capable to lift those or not, because the vehicles were half flooded? And even artillery had some of the practice there. Well, maybe Russians want to put as many vehicles as possible to clear this pond and roll over to the other shore. I don't see the reason why they did it. All 4 vehicles, strange. If one is tagged, it's better not to go all together. Yeah, this is the same direction. Russians, they don't care. They go forward no matter what. Alright, now let's go to the most intense direction from entire front lines, Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. Well, Russia mostly has the success in the area, but for the last day they haven't propelled forward that much. If we check out the deep state military map, yeah, they went across this road here, but the expansion is not that much as it was before. Guys, in my last video I said that the Ukrainian army should leave this area even without command. Maybe I was, for sure I was too much emotional. I just worry about our guys, and there were the cases in Avdiivka. Then Ukrainian soldiers were trapped and unalived by Russians. I guess I mentioned it already in my previous videos for you, just for recall. Those guys were just abandoned, they were wounded in many of the cases, and there was no any chance for them to survive actually. Maybe the only chance was to be imprisoned by Russian soldiers, but Russian soldiers decided to flatline everyone. We know how cruel the Russian army could be even towards their own soldiers, not even telling about Ukrainians. Also in Pokrovsk, they target civilians in Kherson Oblast and not just over there. Elsewhere, Russia operates with the drones. Today I saw the video filmed on the Russian drone, how they use FPV on people who try to, there was one male with a dog and another elderly person. Well, Russians kaputted them. Well, Russians told that Ukraine did it, but it was filmed on the Russian drone from the kind of the close perspective and was shared on the Russian channels with kind of the cheerful music, saying that those were Ukrainian drone operators. Do you know the cases then Russians start to put mice on their drones and film everything of that, like the mice is flying in front of the camera. It is not a single case. They do it every autumn. Then there are lots of the mice in the field. They like revenge on mice or what? So Russian army is definitely barbarian. It is sick, but they want to present Ukrainian army in that view. But if you want really to know what is happening on the ground, I already shared this video on my channel. It was filmed by Dylan. He's American, now in Ukraine, and in Ukraine for many years already. He filmed the video right on the ground. It's the best, I think, documentary job ever created by foreign journalists and posted on YouTube. It is 1 hour 49 minutes long, but it worth every freaking second to watch this one. And I still don't know why this video has just 38,000 views. Guys, we need to change it. We need to boost this piece of the journalist art into elsewhere, into internet. First of all, it's one of the best documentaries filmed on the ground, and Dylan, he was risking his friggin' life filming this material. I'm doing nothing here, I'm sitting in the chair in front of the camera and the microphone, just blah 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 some of the stuff, and I have way more views compared to this really piece of art, guys, of journalism. I don't understand it. I don't get it. So my opinion that Dylan Burns, he deserves way more subscribers, way more views on his videos. He's doing also live streams. He's saying the situation as it is, guys. And please subscribe for his channel. I'm gonna put it in the video description just below. Not the channel itself, but the video he posted, and there you can find his channel and subscribe, because this is outstanding. And I just hope that he'll be okay, because he's risking a lot for that content. I would say not even for content, but for Ukraine itself. Dylan, thank you so much. Alright guys, I deviated from the topic quite a lot, so let's go back to Pokros. So I was just in desperate yesterday telling that Ukrainians should evacuate on their own because the main volunteers, they start to say about it, that our guys should leave, it doesn't matter on Syrsky and so on. But of course, if someone leaves from one side, they could open the flank for Russians to enter and they might circle other Ukrainian groups. So yeah, it was my mistake, I didn't think about it yesterday, I was too emotional calling for evacuation. It should be organized properly. I just hope that Ukrainian military command, especially in this sector, is competent enough to organize it. Otherwise, if our guys get trapped, if Russians film the videos with our soldiers being just cancelled, it's the huge demotivation factor for Ukrainian morale in the army and in civilian life. Well, the Michael 73 analytic, he did this update, so Russians propelled further into the southern area of Mirnograd, and also the gray area expanded in Pokrovsk sector. Almost entire fight is happening in Pokrovsk, and Zelensky mentioned that Russia is using roughly 300 of the troops deployed in the city in different of the blocks, different buildings. Ukraine tries to use drones and aviation strikes there. As analytics say, it's important who controls this district, the northern area of Pokrovsk, and this crossroad for supplies. For now, those are two the main hubs for Ukrainian army supplies in Mirnograd and Pokrovsk, and Ukraine is doing some of the rotations even. And the most of the losses, they're not happening in Pokrovsk or Mirnograd, they're happening on the way out and on the way in to this agglomeration of the cities. Russia sends the drones to control this territory. We're speaking about the operative encirclement. Then Russian forces are still not capable to meet each other, but they may harm supplies a lot for Ukrainian army, making the defense almost not possible. So the only variant for Ukraine is to attack on the flanks and to let the forces out from Mirnograd and Pokrovsk. Judging on the current situation, it's gonna be a best case scenario for Ukraine. And unfortunately, guys, I have to show you even those kind of the pictures. Those are the roads from and to Pokrovsk. They have been hit multiple of the times. Lots of the Ukrainian vehicles. This is Humvee probably. Yeah, that's Humvee. So just for you to understand, yeah, that supplies are almost impossible to deliver. So Ukrainian army should have withdrawn from the place well before. And now Ukraine is doing those kind of the operations using helicopters, GUR special forces, just as a risky attempt to somehow unblock our guys. Unblock from supplies, first of all, because it's too late to use the vehicles normally, as you can see. And Russians are using fiber optic control drones. It is impossible to use any sort of the electronic warfare on them effectively. Only physically you may stop them. It's a very bad situation for Ukraine in Pokrovsk. In the northern side, if we speak about Dobropilya direction, there Ukrainian army is successful, definitely. There's just small enclave of the Russian army. On their channels, they also say that those guys will have to probably surrender to Ukrainians, and Ukraine was really capable here. Russians also admit their useless attacks to get Vladimirivka and Shakhova under control. They say about their command mistake in this direction, that it was a useless freaking operation, which is good for Ukraine. The Ukrainian General Commander Syrsky said that Russia is gathering new forces for attack, because if Russians establish control over Shakhova, they'll have the chance for the second attempt to break through Ukrainian main defense line that goes through Zoloty Kolodets. Also from the good news that still Russian army is not capable to occupy Rodinske. It's the very important settlement for the defense of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. If they take it, it would be over instantly for two of those settlements, and doesn't matter if Ukraine has forces here or not. In that case, they might put their drone operators into the basements and they will close absolutely everything here. And you see, Ukraine is using aviation strikes there because Ukrainian command understands the priority of this very important point. One more UH-60 video that was filmed no one knows where, no one knows when. Probably it's just a training video to show Ukrainian GUR in operation. I don't think it is a Pokrovsk direction, because they wouldn't have enough time to put the camera or for someone to film this helicopter landing and stay okay. Then the Russian drones are flying all around. Maybe it was done from some of the training mission, or quite far away from the Russian positions. And as usual, Russia propels in Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk direction, not far away from Pavlivka. They're getting closer and closer to Pokrovsk, a very important settlement on the way to Zaporizhia. Alright guys, as for the Tuapse port, after all, it was an oil tanker that was hit by some of the drone. At first I thought that it was a bulker because there were some of the photos shared on internet with some of the damages to the bulker, but apparently those images are wrong, because definitely the satellite image later on I saw, it shows the oil tanker. Here was the bulker, it was on a different side, but this is still an oil line for Russia. Apparently they have two of the lines, so the oil tanker was staying somewhere here. It is just a Google image, but I saw the actual ones. I'll try to search for them again. Yes, so here we have it, an oil tanker, and this is the oil pipe or oil line to supply the tanker. This is it, and there was the damage done to its line and to the oil tanker itself. Also the damage done to the same line over here, yeah, we have it, and this tanker was not hit. So there were two of the tankers. Yeah, it's also a tanker, but here is the bulker was staying, and people say that it was this ship hit. And here's the oil spill. Unfortunately, yes, it harms the nature in this region, sadly, but Ukraine applies those drone sanctions on the Russian oil. Ukraine has no other choice. The oil spillage, it is coming, I guess, from the pipe itself here. Yeah, definitely it was the successful strike. At least 3 of the drones made the job very precisely, and Russia is not capable to use this terminal for oil export any longer. Yeah guys, if I'm wrong about something, I always correct myself if I gain some of the evidence, yeah, that I was wrong, let's say in truthful way, because truth is very important. And thank you so much for writing it to me in the comment section. Yesterday I especially called the video "Russia is not winning" to trigger the Russian community, and definitely Russia is not winning. Ukraine is not winning either. As we understand, it's the long war of attritions, and I'm sure that Ukraine will not lose and Russia will be disintegrated. It's the destiny as it was for the Soviet Union, Russian Empire. They will repeat it once again. It is imminent. But here this video name triggered lots of the Z community members, and I was happy to ban many of them. Yes, I cannot ban all of them because there are thousands of the comments under my videos and I work alone, but yesterday I spent roughly an hour to clean all of those Russian bots out there, so I'm very happy that I named the video exactly as it is. So then I was reading also your comments, and thank you guys again for telling me some of the extra information where I could be wrong, and I indeed was wrong about this oil tanker, and that I called for Ukrainian army men just to retreat on will on their own, because in that case there could be even more losses. After all, I'm not a military guy, so sometimes I may say some not correct information, so you need to cross-check all the time all of the influencers, including me. Yeah, try to analyze, cross-check everything coming from the front lines, and not only, but yeah, as you know, we're humans, we make mistakes. Alright, Crimea, once again, here we have the Russian air defense system radar. Oh my god, how many systems do they have? I saw tons and tons of those videos. Air defense after air defense, kaput after kaput. You can see it caught fire, definitely. This is one more radar system, yeah, definitely it was hit. One more, yep, some of the radar here. It's okay. Russia is just losing its surveillance in Crimea. Before it was a saying that Russia controls the unsinkable air carrier in the Black Sea, which is Crimea. It has multiple of the airfields, but Ukraine, just with the help of the drone boats and flying drones, was capable to trap Russian Navy fleet and also kaput lots of the Russian military infrastructure, including Russian military airfields. So maybe the air carrier is unsinkable, but it cannot move, it cannot hide, and there will be some of the losses on that carrier. And there was one more successful operation done by Ukrainian GUR, so Ukrainian military intelligence. They sent the drone boats to kaput the Russian-controlled gas towers in the Black Sea. The towers are like that. The Russians tried to hit the drone boats, but Russians were after all unsuccessful. Yeah, it looks like a video game, but it's the reality. So Russians were also hit by Ukrainian FPV drones. The drones flown from the boat and were operating around this facility, trying to find the locations of the Russian soldiers. As you may see with thermal camera, it is easily achievable. The fights for those platforms continue for multiple of the times. There were different operations from Ukrainian side, from Russian side. Even Budanov went on one of those platforms. It reminds the Snake Island a little. Those platforms are important because Russians put their surveillance systems there. And what is this? That's the firework in a Russian refinery facility, Saratov, Novokuybishevsky refinery or something like that. The AVT-6 distillation plant was hit. It means that the refinery is not working as it should be. It's just a light explanation of what happened there the last night. So Ukraine is aiming for Russian refineries. From what I see, there are some of the gaps sometimes for those drone strikes of Ukraine, but still at least once a week we see those kind of the strikes. And Russians who are filming everything of that, you see that they are satisfied. And as we see here, it is the local substation of the Volgograd Oblast. Well, probably Russians should expect some of the blackouts in this region. Alright, great news we have here. United Kingdom sends Ukraine more Storm Shadow missiles to strike in Russia. So no restrictions from the United States of America any longer. Donald Trump says, oh, those are someone's missiles, those are not American missiles, so they may do whatever they want with them, even though the previous White House administration actually blocked even the usage of the Storm Shadow and Skull, because there are some of the American-made components and they had the right to do so. Well, Donny, it seems like Donny doesn't care. It's the good thing for Ukraine. With more Storm Shadows, obviously Russia should expect something interesting happening to their military bases, logistics, very important supply hubs, infrastructure in general, also on occupied territories, like for example, Crimea. Oh, Donny says that Putin wants to make business as usual with USA. Oh my God, Donny is opening America with that statement.
And I think he'd like to be. I think he wants to come in and he wants to trade with us and he wants to make a lot of money for Russia. And I think that's great. That's what I like.
Can you get it done in a couple of months, do you think?
I think we're going to get it done, yeah. I think he really wants to do business with the U.S. But it did work with India and it did work with Pakistan and it did work with 60% of those countries.
Yeah, I would say Donny also wants it. Vitkov, Donny, everyone, they want to make money with Russia as usual, as it was during the first years of independence. Especially right now, then the United States is dependent on China, rare earth minerals, so for them it would be awesome to have this nice relations with Russia that has lots of those minerals, resources, everything. But Donny doesn't understand that with Putin it is not possible. Putin is an autocrat, he's a dictator, and the system itself in Russia is impossible to match with democracy. This union is just maybe in Trump's dreams, that's it. Donny also mentioned that he will not supply tomahawks to Ukraine, but he still may rethink that decision. And physically, it is even hard for deploying those tomahawks in Ukraine, because Ukraine needs also numerous of the ground launchers. And how many of those on the market in United States storages? 1, 2, 3, 4? No one says the real number, but not many absolutely. And without this political boost, decisions taken at the highest level possible, of course, United States will not restart the production of those ground launchers. That's the main issue for the Tomahawks. So as for me, it was a variant to apply pressure on Russia, but Americans, they have different missiles, also could be launched from the airplanes. So maybe it's better to change the direction of discussion on cruise missiles of the different type. And still, Donny is sure that he may finish the war in Ukraine in a few months, he said, but it's unreal. With Putin, it's absolutely unreal. Meanwhile, big American and European companies start to earn more money on selling more oil. First of all, because of the sanctions applied on Russian oil. So consumers are looking for the new markets and they purchase, in this case, not the Russian oil, and the fuel prices, they're not growing fast or something, which means that this entire fear of the previous White House administration that the sanctions can lead to the oil prices to skyrocket, or Ukrainian strikes on Russian refineries also may harm the world economy and the United States personally, and Joe Biden will lose the elections. He lost the elections. He didn't even take the part in those elections because he was kind of the elderly guy, so people wouldn't have elected him, I guess, after all. But the real thing we see, Ukraine strikes Russian oil. Russian oil is also under sanctions, and still prices are not skyrocketing somewhere. Just sell more oil yourself. Those Exxon and Chevron are American companies, and they started to earn more profits from refining and trading roles in the third quarter as Russian capacity was contained. Also today, China published the news that they refused to purchase lots of the Russian oil as they done before. Yeah, I understand that they tried to circumnavigate those sanctions, and maybe in 1 month or 2, they're gonna sign the new contracts with some of the different companies, oil companies of Russia, not the Rosneft or Lukoil, something different. But the market in general has already changed, because if you sign the contracts with ExxonMobil, Shell, or so on, do you want to quit those right away? I think those are usually the long-term contracts, which could last for many months or maybe even for many years. So Russia already lost lots of the markets now, which brings more instability within Russia. And guys, thank you so much for supporting my job on Patreon and also on the membership of this YouTube channel. You may check out the link just below to join my Patreon, or click join under this video to follow me on membership. But if you don't have that opportunity to support me in that way, well, press your like to this video and also subscribe for the channel. It is very important to propel this video in YouTube algorithms. So thank you so much for that as well. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.